Okay, so the first track on the album is Antarctica, song very much written by Tony and I. It's the only other song apart from Making It Great Again that had its origins in my unfinished solo album. So I did have some of the parts written before going into this project. So it didn't really sound the same. Originally I was working off a hip hop beat, to which I added the bass line and eventually the chords, although they came in once I was working with Tony. And then the thing wasn't working at all, and I realised that the thing that wasn't working was the hip-hop beat that I originally started with. So I removed that, we put in something a lot groovier, and that's how Antarctica finished up. But just out of interest, I've managed to dig up the original demo so you can hear the beat that was not used. So here we go. So that's how it started out live. And those are the three components I had, only one of which really survived into the final version. And then lyrically, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. It's about climate change and global warming, and the fact that Antarctica is getting smaller with every year. So that's Antarctica.
Yeah, this is the opening track on the album. And I wanted the vocal to sound very sort of icy and cold, so you know, I used to try very sort of very floaty vocal, certain sort of reverbs and delays to achieve that. And I wanted a sort of sibilant sound, sort of icy, sort of very sort of you know, an alliteration type sound, you know, icy. What's that? There's a poem I think called I think it's a Wilfred Owen poem. Merciless ice east winds, that nervous. It's got that running through it. And I wanted a similar sort of effect for this. And yeah, the whole thing sounds like that. I think the whole thing sounds quite icy and cold, and it's a bit sort of bleak and sad. And you've got Doug's sort of floppy synth parts. You know, and the whole thing is just, yeah, it's all very, yeah. I think you get the message with this song.
Okay, Fake News, second song on the album, and also one of the earlier songs that we did. I think it maybe was the second song that we worked on together. This one was actually developed from scratch between us, and I think what's interesting about it is it starts off with quite a, I think it's fair to say, a Peter Gabriel type of intro on marimbas, and then kind of turns into more of a pop song with a 4 on the floor beat. And a big arrangement. So just go through the opening of that. So it starts with a little marimba pattern, which is put through a delay to increase the rhythmic qualities of it, with a bit of random drums, and then you get this big 4 on the floor beat. And then you get what actually drives the song and the basis of the song, which is a big rumbling bass line, which is on a sequencer. It's actually an arpeggiating bass, which is something that I use quite a lot of numbers on the album. All of the vocals, the melody lines came from Tony, and we were working together on the idea of Fake News, so I wrote the lyrics. But as with many of these songs, some of Tony's improvised lyrics actually finished up on the record. So that's Fake News.
Yeah, I think Fake News is it's got that 4 to the floor thing, and there's lots of sort of arpeggios going on, sort of crossing over each other, and it's almost three-dimensional. It's kind of, you know, and it sort of comes in and out and fades back, and so it's kind of, you don't know where you are. It's all a little bit crazy. But yeah, I love working on that one. I think it's one of the standouts on the album. You know, a nice sort of pop feel to it.
It's just there to make you.
Okay, this is Making It Great Again. I notice on the file on my Mac that it was originally called Taking Our Country Back, which is also in the chorus. And I thought I'd use this to show a little bit about how I go about writing. So I've always written songs over the years. When I used to write songs in the good old days, I would sit at the piano and write them because that's all we had. It was either that or a hollowed out log and banging it with the jawbone of an ox, which used to get complaints from the neighbours, so I used to stick to piano. After that, as was the vogue in the 80s and 90s, I would often start from the rhythm. With the availability of cheap drum machines, it's very easy to set up a rhythm, and then that gives you something to work off, and it makes it easier to write songs. And these days, I quite often write off simple sequences, and that's something I really enjoy doing, working off arpeggios or simple sequence patterns and setting them up effectively to establish a key, and it works a little bit like a drone going throughout the piece, and then you can write chords that go around that drone, and it makes for some interesting harmonies and interesting clashes and discords as well when you go a bit outside of the drone. So I thought I'd show you a couple here that I'd used, and this is another song which is very much the bass line is what gave birth to this piece. So I was mucking about with sequences, and I found this one which up high sounds like this. So no great shakes, but quite a nice little sound. However, if you play it in the bass, it makes a very big, powerful sound, which I'm sure you'll recognise if you know the song, which sounds like this. So as you can hear, and that is simply what drove the piece, and that's what I wrote it around, was that moving bass line, and changes key as you move up and down. So there's that, and I also used some other sounds actually that were sequenced. I think this is one that I used quite a lot of. So that's how I went about writing it, and lyrically, this is about Trump and Brexit. It's about the rise of right-wing populism and this idea that somehow things were better in the past, and that all we do in order to fix things and make them as they were in the past is to be absolutely horrible to lots of people. So that's what the song's about. A little bit of politics, as Ben Elton used to say in the 80s.
Yeah, Making It Great Again. This is the first one we worked on, actually. This was originally one of Doug's songs for his solo album, which he wanted me to sing on anyway. And so yeah, this was, Doug sent it to me. He said, "Look, see what you think of this. See what you can do with this. See what you can come up with." And immediately, I heard the melody. It was very, very, very quick, and I improvised some lyrics around that. Sent it back to Doug, and I think he already had some lyrics, I think, from what I remember. And then changed them a little bit. I think I changed the line with my little flag all over you. It was something else. I changed it to with my little flag all over you. We stuck those little sort of those movie sound bites in, and yeah, it was instant from there on. The first song worked a treat, and then everything else was so easy with it. But yeah, really enjoyed doing this one. Really good.
Right, the next one up is Next Generation. Start with the lyrics on this one. So this was kind of a reaction against everyone slagging off the next generation of kids. All the time, people of my age group tend to talk about them being feckless and playing with their mobile phones all the time. They usually say that whilst they're playing on their mobile phones. And my experience of the next generation, having a 16-year-old boy, and I think Tony's too, is that the next generation are fine, and I'm hoping that they will be able to fix a lot of the ridiculous mistakes that our generation have made with global warming and of course Nigel Farage. So that's what the song is about. It's about next generation are coming and they're going to be great. And what I would use this song to indicate is a little bit about its sources. So I noticed on my Mac that I originally called this song Proggy, So I think this is the most prog rock song on the album in terms of the fact that it's written in 7/4, I think, and it has lots of synthesizers and has a small keyboard solo at the end. And we also use the services of Jamie Fisher on drums for this, because I think when you're writing prog rock, you need drums. And the interesting thing about technology, of course, is that Jamie was able to record his drums based on an MP3 that we emailed to him, and he was able to then email his drum part back. So if we play a little bit, we can isolate it. Here's the original. It doesn't have Tony's vocals on it yet, because this went off to Tony for him to add melodies, of which there are a great many, but I'll let him talk about that. And as you can hear, the basis of the song is there, and here come the drums, and we can identify those. And these are the drums that Jamie emailed to us, and needed very little work doing to them. So well done, Jamie, and thank you. And that's Next Generation.
Next Generation. This is probably one of my favourites on the album. I knew when Doug sent me the idea that I really wanted to have big sort of vocal harmonies. So yeah, it took a long time to do, but we got there with it. I also thought it needed a guitar line opening, which I used this beauty on. It's an Epiphone Les Paul Special. They're not very expensive, but they sound really, really good. So that's what I used for this track. It's sort of probably the most proggy track on the album as well. It's in 7. Lots of big vocal harmonies going on. Doug's keyboard solo at the end is really, really good. I love that. The just let you hear the isolated vocals on the backing vocals on this, if I can. So yeah, this is the
Next generation's coming soon. Next generation calls the tune. They don't care where we're coming from. They'll change the world.
Sounds a bit weird when you hear it isolated, but
without our fears, they don't see our borders. They don't think so small.
yeah. So I think it took a while to do all of this track. We had Jamie on drums as well, so I think we needed real drums for this one. So we had Jamie on playing drums, and yeah, this is definitely one of my favourites on the album. Absolutely adore this track. So yeah, great fun.
As big as life, 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 as big as life.
Right, Leave This Town. So this is a composition that was mostly in the bag by the time we started, with Tony doing most of the parts, and what I've done to it is I added some piano and some organ and some backing vocals. The piano proved to be quite a challenge, and so looking at my track listing here, I can see that I've got at least 3 different versions of the piano, and if memory serves me, this is with all of them sounding at the same time. As you can hear, there's lots of it. I finished up with 2 and then tried hacking them together to make one that I was happy with, and in the end I wasn't really happy with any of it, so I did it again, and the version of the pianos that you hear on the final one is a one-take piano part. So that's Leave This Town.
Yeah, Leave This Town. This track was originally written for another project that I had previously, but it just wasn't working out for that one. It didn't work with it for some reason. So I brought it to the table for this one. A world information overload and technology overload, and wanting to escape and get away from that and get grounded again. It's that kind of thing, escaping the city to the trees and things, So that's the basic gist of the track. Yeah, again, lots going on with it. Lots of atmospheres. I think one of the lyrics that I sing wrong as well. I think on the album I sing criminal psychosis instead of clinical psychosis. So when you listen to it, bear in mind that it should be clinical psychosis and not criminal psychosis. Both work. And Doug contributed a really fabulous piano part to that. Excuse me, that's just the dog in the background shaking. And I think he had 3 parts for it, and in the end, we were going to sort of splice them up and use different sections of all the 3. But in the end, he just went, look, I want to do this. I'm going to do a take, just one take, and then hopefully get it right. And he did, and it sounds fantastic. So it's very atmospheric, this track. I'm going to kill that dog.
Man on TV. It's one of the more epic songs on the album with the Cast of Thousands, and it starts off with a piano solo, which I actually put on at the end because I thought it'd be nice to have a bit of solo piano somewhere on the album. But the actual song was again written off a low arpeggiated part, which I'll isolate and play. So it starts off with the piano. And then the song was actually written off this part, which I shall isolate. And that goes more or less the whole way through. And then in terms of lyrics, this is a song about a late night show on cable TV run by a man who presents conspiracy theories, so the kind of things about governments are doing various nefarious things, we were visited by aliens, that sort of thing. So it was originally going to be another song more or less about fake news, which is going to be called Real News, but it was actually Tony that changed the meaning when his improvised lyrics. He came up with Man on TV, and it so happened I'd been watching a documentary a bit like this over at my dad's a few weeks before, so the two came together and made I think one of the more satisfying lyrics on the album as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, it's a big epic piece, I think, with lots of stuff going on.
Man on TV, or Real News as it was originally called. This is one of the, I think it's one of the stronger ones on the album as well. Some great synth parts coming in and out, and lots of different things happening. And of course we got the big 60-piece gospel choir at the end, which was recorded in this room.
Right, this is When the Evening Comes. Again, the title is very much courtesy of Tony, as it was part of the improvised lyrics that he did, which I then turned into a lyric. The lyric went through various stages. It started off being a spy story set on a train in Eastern Europe somewhere. It then turned into briefly a song about vampires, which I think lasted for about 20 minutes. And then eventually became a kind of dark and slightly twisted romance. So it's telling a story, basically. And in terms of the music, it comes off a simple riff, which was something like this. That sort of thing. and the song went from there. It's a song which a lot of people who we played it to have really liked. I think it's got a slightly looser, jazzier feel, and certainly that's one of the influences on my playing. Things like Dave Grusin, Chick Corea, and things like that, and a little bit of that comes out in this one. In that it's got that sort of slightly jazzier feel. Tony puts in a bit of jazz flute in it, and there's all kinds of interesting touches. So one of my personal faves, definitely.
Yeah, this one kind of, it started out as a kind of espionage thing, I think, Doug had in mind, and then eventually it just evolved into a sort of dark, secret love affair type song. Some really nice jazzy chords going on there. I think it's got a very sort of jazzy feel, especially the middle section, some jazz flute and then some jazz sort of 60s type vocals just in that middle section. And of course we've got Fred Arlington on flugelhorn and sax on this one as well. He's popped up again to feature on this album. And yeah, it's a lot of people like this one. So yeah.
Will I be back again?
Right, so this is More Beautiful. Lyrically, it's a love song, and I think as love songs go, I think the interesting thing about it is that this is, when you think about most love songs, they are about the beginning of a relationship or the end of a relationship, and this is about the middle of a relationship. So I think that's interesting, and it's certainly very heartfelt. And then musically, it's quite a standard, slightly gospel-y sort of feel, which goes something like this. And that's about all there is to it, but very happy with that song, and Tony's orchestration on it is absolutely beautiful.
It's a love song. It's as simple as that. And I remember when I said to Doug, how did you find writing the lyrics? And he said, yeah, it was quite difficult actually. It's quite hard. You have to reach into some places that you really don't often go. And it was quite hard to sing as well. I remember I had to do a few takes of that lyric of that song to get it right, get the performance right. And it's another track that needed some. It was crying out for some little orchestral sections, some string sections. So there's some nice little string arrangements in there. We didn't want to go too far with the orchestral stuff. We just wanted to keep it to a bare minimum, really. And yeah, this is one of the tracks where we use it to good effect, I think.
Forward.
Right, so originally the band was actually going to be called One More Thing, and it was named after this song, although we finished up going out as Tony Patterson and Doug Melbourne, because obviously we're both hugely famous and that will sell us another few more million copies of the album. I'm a huge fan of Sly and Robbie and the kind of electronic reggae they did. In particular, I'm a big fan of Grace Jones, which they did a lot of work on, and this song started out live. You can hear it in the first 24 bars or so as very much a riff that could have come off a Grace Jones album, possibly an early Police album as well. So it's using a little electronic reggae beat and a big synth bass line. So you can hear both of those as they come in. So there's the bass line again, and a lot of this stuff I make use of timed echoes to increase the rhythm and make it more add to the tension, really. And it's the same with this drum beat, which is using loads and loads of timed echo to make it carry over and increase the excitement of the beat. So that's what it's doing. And there's not really much else to this piece from my point of view, because it's got a simple synth playing the offbeat in a typical reggae fashion, and that's about it. I'll just just turn the volume down. And then lyrically, this is about the modern disease of mobile phones at night. So I have always suffered slightly from insomnia, and that hasn't been improved by the fact that now when I wake up, I can go onto Facebook, or I can go shopping, or do all kinds of other stupid stuff in the middle of the night when I should be sleeping, and that's what this is about. So that is one more thing.
Yeah, we're all slaves to social media. This was the original title of the project, One More Thing, and then we decided to go with Tony Patterson and Doug Melbourne. Yeah, big sort of chunky synth from Doug. A bit of sort of a weird guitar part in there. It doesn't even sound like guitar, but it's a very sort of quirky guitar bit. This is the only track I used some auto-tune on the vocal, just to give it that sort of that automated sound, sort of robotic automated sound. Used it to the extreme, and then in the middle section when I sing the, and he wants to, why can't it be like how it used to be? Yeah, the auto-tune's taken off deliberately, and then put back on again for the next section. But yeah, this was we started this quite early in the project, and then as time went on, we kind of left it and then came back to it. I think it was probably the last one we worked on. In fact, it was the last one we worked on. I remember when we finished it. I was doing the last parts here and putting the last bits down. It was very weird because I knew it was the last track of the album, and it was a bit of a I'll never forget that.
Okay, so if you look at the screen here, you can see there is just one part, and it is one improvised piano part. That's all there is to it. I love working off pulses, as I've mentioned. So here the pulse is manually provided by my thumb on a B flat on the piano, and everything else is improvised around that. And all that happened with this was that when I had finished improvising the part, I gave it to Tony, and Tony did another fantastic orchestration around it, which I'm sure he can talk about. So it's a very simple piece, and we wanted to do an instrumental, and we didn't want anything that was too busy and involved, sounding like something that you'd give a name like War of the Warlike Hobbits at War. So this is a quiet and thoughtful ending to the album, and it's called Autumn's Left Quieter. It was originally called Autumn's Left, which was a bit of a play on words for an old jazz standard called Autumn Leaves, but when I sent the piano part to Tony, I sent it way too loud on the recording, and he said could I record it quieter, so I sent him a song called Autumn's Left Quieter, which is how the title came about, and we stuck with it. So this is the end of the album, and we hope you like it, and that's my track by track analysis of the songs. Thanks.
Yeah, originally called Autumn's Left, until Doug one day sent the files through that were too loud, and I asked him to do it quieter, and he sent it back and called it Autumn's Left Quieter, and I thought, he's changed the name of it. And then but it kind of works, so he just left it at that, and it kind of works. To me it's like kind of Autumn's Left Quieter. I don't know, it could be the loss of someone in the autumn, so Autumn's Left Quieter. Anyway, I digress. This is the only instrumental on the album, and it's some beautiful work from Doug. And another one where it needed some orchestration, I think. I think there's 2 tracks or 3 tracks where we've got some string arrangements, and this is one of them towards the end, sort of high violins, and then at the very end, you've got the sort of, the broader sort of strings. And then it ends on that chord. When Doug sent it originally, it just ended on the chord you'd expect, But I remember saying, no, let's make it sort of a bit mysterious. Let's let it hang a bit. because it's the last track on the album. We don't know where we're going to go next with this, so just let it sort of hang there a bit. So I think that was the reasoning behind that, I think. But yeah, beautiful track. And yeah, that's the album.
Right, so I can't remember the name of the song. Can we stop?